Let's go on to our superintendent's report. Superintendent Dixon.
Good. All right. Thank you, Kelsey. Good morning, everybody. It's February 1st, my sister-in-law's birthday, and a delightful start to the month to hear music and celebrate birthdays and art, and I just enjoy being here with you all. We'll start off with our report on student art, and I don't see anyone in there. Oh, there's Lori. Thank you. And we are going to engage in more video. So hopefully we've got this queued up. Lori, do you want to introduce the art first or the video first?
The art first and then the video.
Thank you.
This is a little teaser waiting for you. Lori Bajewski, I'm your Fine Arts Coordinator here at the Utah State Board of Education. It's my pleasure to bring you art from Scholars Academy in Tooele and Enoch Elementary School in Enoch. So on this wall, this is Scholars Academy, and we have the very first one. We have a little 3D action there, bubble blowing self-portraits by fourth graders. And they were looking at proportion, and they connected scale to all kinds of science vocabulary using a variety of materials. This little installation here on my left are little folding accordion books. And I invite you during one of the breaks to come and take a closer look. This was a 6th grade art project where students were introduced to the elements of art, and they created cues using different materials and styles to look at shape, color, value, line, form, and surface. And it's something where they can fold up, put in their pockets, and it's a really wonderful reminder about the elements of art. On the back wall, on this same back wall at Scholars Academy, 3rd graders did a whole wall of poinsettias, and they were focusing on learning the focal points and how different values of color interacted with one another. Okay, on the opposite wall, really interesting. This is from Enoch Elementary. Ms. Spagnola's students, she's our BTS arts educator, worked with 3rd and 5th graders. These are called Earth's Sphere jars. And the 5th graders, the 3rd and the 5th approached this in a little different ways. The 5th graders looked at Earth spheres by researching a chosen habitat, looking at geospheres, biospheres, hydrospheres, and atmospheres. And then they chose their habitat and researched the plants and animals and water sources within all of those spheres. And then you can see they're all in these biosphere jars, and they watercolored and they cut out all of their images, and they were displayed with plastic coverings on each jar, giving the appearance of a glass jar. I think they're really delightful. And then I learned something looking at the back wall. We have a bunch of cyanotypes, and I learned that the Greek word cyanotype, it means dark blue substance. And this is an very early, one of the earliest forms of photography, as most of you probably know. It's over 170 years old. It requires no darkroom, and they use UV rays to create photosynthesis. They use sensitive paper, and then the light literally creates the images behind them. And this was 3rd and 5th graders. Ms. Johnson, she is our Iron County Arts Instructional Coach who worked with these students. The 5th graders I learned more reading about this one. They actually looked at the physical and chemical processes of what happens when you combine ferric ammonium citrate and potassium ferricyanate to create this photosynthetic paper. Then they washed it on the paper, cut out the images, and voila, it's what you see on our beautiful back wall. The third graders actually went to Zion. So they went to Zion National Park. They researched organisms and plant environments and created the images that you see behind us. So this month, a lot of arts, a lot of science connections. And in the spirit of how we started this meeting, I'm going to now turn to the video that we have queued up. And this is a Valentine from the BTS Arts principals and teachers talking about why the arts, why arts integration, and why Beverly Taylorson Arts Learning Program across all schools in the state of Utah. Enjoy.
I'm gonna try to pull that up. It wasn't going in the slideshow, so I'm gonna try to pull that up.
Seat, I'm listening to the teacher. You're bringing out that creative side in them. You are bringing out the joy.
The benefits for every kiddo in our building are just vast, right? And it's not just academic, it's social, it's emotional. It helps you work with the whole child.
I would say do anything it takes to try to make it work. And if that requires some creativity in your scheduling, some flexibility, the dividends are huge. It pays out in student achievement, in engagement, in the feeling in your school.
Culture is everything. Culture is everything. You can have amazing lessons and assessment, but if the culture is not set, if the relationships aren't in place of trust and inclusion and belonging, then the rest doesn't have the impact that it needs. That culture piece allows for so many students to find their spot. And I think that this program, the BTS program, has allowed for a school to have that.
Now that we have it, you're not going to be able to get rid of it from us. It's breathing a different sort of happiness in my building that wasn't there before.
We're doing an ask of teachers, right? Because we're asking to spend time. But primarily, it's going to be different. And ideally, it's just going to be putting that energy in a different place and hopefully in a place that's going to give back more to you as a teacher. Instead of spending so much energy and time in managing student behavior and responding to classroom problems, we're putting that on the front end by trying to design things that are going to be engaging. The fun, the excitement that comes from that gives so much to teachers.
It is absolutely helping every student in your school build confidence and build resilience and build the ability to take risks. You'd be foolish not to have it.
Thank you, Lori. I just so love that last line of we'd be foolish not to have it. And I so appreciate working for a board who values the arts, who prioritizes funding for the arts. So many times on the Hill, I've been asked by legislators, why do you need BTSA funding? Wouldn't schools just do this without the funding? It's like trying to make me, have me make the case. And it's the easiest case to make, to say arts and crafts and music have been in schools in Utah for a long time, but Beverly Taylor Sorts and Arts is a whole different way to think about the arts. It's a game changer. It's a connector, and just evidence of how Lori described the jars on the wall, that or the chemistry involved in art on the back wall. I mean, there's just such a different feel in our schools for the way that kids think about arts integrated and as a standalone, as Member Bogus has pointed out, the importance of that as well. But I just, our schools are amazing when you walk in and see how the arts really can change the trajectory of outcomes for kids. So I really appreciate the board advocating for the arts, being a great supporter of BTSA and being able to highlight that on the Hill. So thank you, Lori, for all of your efforts. You stepped into a new role with a challenging time. So thank you so much for everything you do for our kiddos and for the arts. Right, next up we have our Employee of the Month, who happens to be already at the table with us, Miss Vanessa Barnes. Vanessa is being highlighted by her peers because she's somebody who goes above and beyond, not just for her team, but for everybody in the organization. She'll do things like volunteer to switch work shifts to help a peer who might have a family issue or something going on. She'll pick up extra shifts. She pitches in, assisting with all sorts of projects. And one of the things I so love about Vanessa is that she shows up at work just so positive and so full of sunshine and energy every day and willing to tackle a problem. And it's not just about showing up and putting in her time, but she really sees this as her way of contributing to the greater good of kiddos. And it's just something that I hope for every member of our organization, that they wake up and see how they are making a difference by even the little things that they do every day. Vanessa, she is really great at helping just on outside things, as I mentioned, while keeping all the policy demands, board rules, waiver demands. I mean, there's a lot that goes on that she manages working on the policy team. And yesterday it was fun to have her up on the Hill with us, handing out snacks to the legislators, and to watch her interact with them and be so positive. She's just a great representative of our organization. We love Vanessa and just so honor her as a valued part of our team. So congratulations to Vanessa Barnes. In keeping with tradition in my report of connecting to our vision and mission, if you'll just, thank you, Ryan. So I don't know if all of you have taken the time to really look at the graphic. I know it was on our handout that you gave to legislators, but trying to capture the board's vision and mission and what that looks like in terms of your work, of our work together. So our vision really focusing on academic and organizational excellence in Utah education. I want to highlight some of the things that are going really well, and then also talk about how we're opening doors of opportunity for all Utah children as our mission. And I always reflect back on vision is where we're trying to get to, and mission is the way we do things. So I want to take some time to reflect on both of those today and make some highlights, and then definitely end with some areas that we still need work on. First of all, I want to highlight the ACT. You've heard a report out on the ACT. And one of the things that we've struggled with in the past is to try and reach better opportunities for kids hitting all of college readiness benchmarks. So in the past, we may have done well in one area, but we were lacking in really increasing our ability to hit what is called, it's how ACT looks at it and says, if you hit this certain mark on all of these components, you're a lot more likely to succeed in college. Finish on time, do well, get good grades in college, etc. And we've really worked on that, and we are now at the point where we had the highest statewide composite score among all the states that test all of their juniors. And there used to just be a handful of states that tested everyone, but now, Darren, are we up to how many states test all of their juniors? Okay, so up to possibly 15 states then. So we are number one in the percentage of students achieving each college readiness benchmark, which is amazing because that's where we used to struggle a little bit. And also all 4 college readiness benchmarks, and then the highest statewide composite score among those states that test all of their juniors. So that's really something to celebrate because that is not only our end of level metric, but also looking at how well our students are prepared for college. And it's a good comparative national look. Now let's move to international. We haven't done a lot to highlight the recent PISA assessment, in part because it's a pretty small n size. You know, it's not like we're testing all of our students or even a larger sample size like we do in NAEP, but it is it's 1 point of data and it's an international comparison. So Utah is the second highest rated state. I think we're just behind Massachusetts. We had the smallest post-pandemic mathematics score decline of any state, and we've talked a little bit about that on NAEP, but it also showed up on PISA. And then Utah students, based on these things, where PISA looked at this internationally, were expected to experience the smallest lifetime pandemic-related learning loss in the nation. Now, I just heard a report this morning on the way into work that nationally, in this last year, kids really showed dramatic improvement in picking up some of that time lost spent on learning during the pandemic, but we still have a ways to go. But Utah, as we will talk about in a minute with NAEP, you can see that we've stayed steady in some of these or haven't taken a dive like others. So based on this, as I mentioned, these are 15-year-old students that are tested in reading, math, and science to see how well prepared they are to meet the challenges of the future. And that's kind of the whole PISA background. It's not necessarily an assessment on how well they've done on our content, but how well are they prepared to meet the challenges of the future. That's how this is designed. And there's also some good correlation with NAEP. So again, Utah outperformed any other state except Massachusetts, and we also outperformed many other high-performing OECD countries like Finland, Sweden, New Zealand, Germany, France, and Norway. And we're happy to get you the full PISA report if you're interested in that data. NAEP is something that has been pointed to and reflected on quite often, and I've had the opportunity this past year to go around the country and make a couple of whistle stops of people wanting to know, what is Utah doing? Like, why do you continue to be consistent on NAEP, but also how did you stay steady in mathematics? And we'll be talking about the math standards today. You've heard testimony and concern about our standards, but in NAEP it shows that we really were able to demonstrate no significant decline in 8th grade mathematics. Our average scale score for Utah, which was 240, was significantly higher than the national public average scale score, which was 235. So again, NAEP is something where not every student is tested, but they take a representative sample. It's a significantly, statistically significant sample to be able to compare nationally. So we have about, I think, 1,700 students in each of the 2 grades for both subjects who took part in the test. Looking next at our graduation data. And the graduation rate, as we've mentioned prior, for 2023, the cohort was 88.3%, which is a steady increase. In 2017, where we kind of adjusted the way we measure graduation rates, that was 85.9%. So you can see over the last 6 years, we've continued to rise. At the same time, dropout rates have decreased from 16.25% to 9.8%. And we had significant increases among various subgroups that are identified by the federal government with various labels. And this includes students with disabilities, students learning English. The largest gain were students identified as Pacific Islander student group in this student group, and they went from 80.0 0.05% of students graduating to 82.31%. So really some significant efforts that have been made by our LEAs to increase that graduation rate, which is awesome. Now let's talk about some of the differences that we've made in providing opportunities for students. And I love listening to your conversations about how we open doors for students. How do we create more opportunities? How do we remove barriers? That's the really significant work of the board. And so when you're focused on policy around opening doors for students, I truly love to sit back and just listen to you dig into the data and debate policy and try to do those things that make a difference. I'm reflecting on, with this slide, a conversation you had about changing rule that would, in essence, force a function to get underserved students more involved in AP classes. And you heard some testimony from teachers who were concerned that it would lower their rates and that things wouldn't be as successful. Well, the opposite has happened, as we predicted, that we have more students who are participating in earning college credit in for AP tests than in previous years. And specifically, where we see first generation, maybe they are the first English speakers in their family, first interested in college, that we're seeing an increase of success in 20% in this last year. And you see the number of exams that were taken, 45,308 AP exams, with 30,816 of those scoring a 3 or higher. And there's actually some really good data that even if a student doesn't take the test, which we hope they do, but they engage in the rigorous coursework, that they do better, of course, on the ACT and are better prepared to go to college when they're engaged in rigorous curriculum and instruction. The number of students participating in concurrent enrollment saw an 8.72% increase over the previous school year. And think about the tuition that was saved by our families. Now, this is kind of looking overall at the tuition by students taking concurrent enrollment, but just in the 2022-23 year, that's an additional $8.8 million saved by families compared to the prior year. That's really significant based on our concurrent enrollment efforts. And again, we know that when students take more rigorous content, there are a lot of benefits of feeling more confident, better prepared to go into tech schools or college. So some great news. And this came out of a USHU report on November 18th. That's where that data comes from. Okay, moving on to CTE, which I am so proud of our CTE efforts in our state. We have focused on CTE for a very long time, and there are other states who have just kind of come into this in the last 5 to 10 years. But you can see here that these are all of the industry certifications that were earned by our students. The top areas are food nutrition, child development, Woods 1, commercial photo 1, interior design 1. Those were the competency certificates. And then the top pathways of all of our pathways, these would be those, meaning when I say top, those with the highest completer rates. So they've taken a couple of CTE courses in a concentrated pathway. Those would be health science, broadcasting and digital media, programming and software development, business information management, and engineering. Now, one of the benefits of being a concentrator and a completer in CTE, the graduation rate for students who are CTE concentrators is 97%. The graduation rate for CTE completers is 99%. So 85.2% of 9th through 12th graders, CTE concentrators, earned a credit at C grade or better in concurrent enrollment, IB or AP, and passed skills certification third-party industry exams. So showing the same kind of rigor when students engage in a CTE pathway as if they are enrolled in AP, IB, etc. We get that same kind of benefit for our kids. So just wanted to share that with you on CTE. Next, just talking about our online offerings with SEOP. And I know that you have done a lot of work with SOAP rules, and that those conversations continue to go on. But if you can look at the numbers that pop out here, that last year, SEOP programs served 8,081 distinct students in grades 7 through 12, and then 31,295 half credit enrollments. So that's about almost 2,000 full-time students in being served when you add up all of their credits and the number of students. And we talked a little bit about dual immersion, and I'm grateful that the board took this up because it hasn't been on a lot of people's radar. If you roll up dual language immersion and disperse that money, that really would eliminate the program. So thank you for doing that in one of your board meetings this last month. But you can see the number of students who are enrolled in dual language immersion programs. And when you look at our bridge program, which doesn't get enough press, there are about 9,500 kids in upper division world language credits earned, or I should say credits, not kids, but about 9,500 world language credits earned, which again means they're already getting college credit. And our kids, remember, can come out of high school having a minor in that bridge program. By the time they graduate, they can have a minor in a language as they go into secondary programs or post-secondary programs. Excuse me. When we look at the 4 categories on ACT, we also have some data to show that students in Utah's Spanish dual immersion, grade 9 students, when they took the AP test, that they outperformed the national average in 3 of the 4 categories. So our kids do really, really well who have been in dual immersion. And then last but not least, I think it's important to look forward. What are some things that we need to work on? Well, we know that our students who are multi-language learners are not performing at the same levels of some of their peers. And so what are the barriers that might be in the way of that happening? What are some things we can shore up? What are practices we can engage in? What policies do we need to look at? So I would really encourage the board to focus some efforts, double down on our multi-language learners and see how we can better support them and their families. Also thinking about you've heard Chair Moss talk and Chair Norton talk a lot about ROI and finance. So how do we think about demonstrating our return on investments in alignment with the new performance measures that you've adopted? That's a big lift, and we spent a lot of time over a couple of years of putting those new performance measures in place. So how are we investing our time and effort to make sure that we're reaching the benchmarks that you established as a board with those new performance measures? There's a lot being said about cell phones and social media, thinking about what is our role in all of that, and then looking at implementing the new framework on oversight assurances and monitoring. There's a lot of conversation on the Hill with every bill about the board's role. And do we have more monitoring and oversight? And what does that look like? And do we have the capacity? And what does it mean? And what reports are in place? So while a lot of work has been done on reporting and requirements and trying to cut burdens down in schools, we see a lot of things coming at us with a lot of requirements for monitoring. So those are just 4 things I would highlight and put on your radar to address and think about in the coming year. So thank you, and happy Day of Love coming up this month. February is a month of love, and so love to you all and appreciation for all that you do every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Dixon. And, I'll say after being up on the Hill now for the last, I guess we're only 3 weeks. It feels like 3 months, but there's a lot of discussion about how to go further and higher and better, but a whole lot of appreciation for the great things that we have in Utah. So it's always fun to be up there and hear the discussion. And there's differences about how to do it, different programs. We've had some of those here, but there sure is a lot of appreciation up there for the great work that folks in this building do and folks out in the field. So it's fun to be a part of. Thank you for that report. Appreciate it. Let's see, should we take 5? And I think we're at a point maybe before we dive into our committee business, take 5 and come back at 11:45. Sound good? Okay.